Hi, welcome to Crash Course U.S. History. My name is Joseph Quinto.
And my name is Evan Triplehorn, and today we are going to talk about the modern LGBT movement, more commonly known as the gay agenda.
In the 1920s, the gay life was visible only in New York City in the areas of Greenwich Village and Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance. In 1948, Harry Hay called out for a civil rights movement for the LGBT community, thus starting the Mattachine Society. The Mattachine Society was created by Hay and Chuck Rowland for a group of gay men that wanted to have a protection in rights as gay men. Another group that was created in the 1950s was Daughters of Bilitis. This was a group made by lesbian women with the same goal of obtaining rights in America as lesbians and have an open space for the community. Now, in the 1950s, many homosexuals were still angry due to the fact that many of them could still be arrested and could be sent into psychiatric ward because many people thought homosexuality was a mental illness.
In the 60s, LGBT rights began to pick up with the 6-day-long Stonewall riots. For this, let's go to the thought bubble. The Stonewall riots were in response to police raids on the Stonewall Inn, located in Greenwich Village in Manhattan. Standard police raids would usually happen in the early hours of the morning, and patrons of the bar would be forced to provide identification, and people dressed as women would be inspected by female police officers to verify their sex. However, on June 28th, people at the bar began to refuse to provide identification and didn't go with the female officers for sex verification. Thus, the police decided to take everyone in the bar to the police station. Officers began assaulting lesbian and transgender women, as well as beating gay men inside of the bar. Protesters began throwing beer bottles, pennies, and whatever they had on them to try and hurt the cops outside. Garbage was burned in the trash cans, windows were broken, and the tactical police force had to be called in to assist the police, as a riot of any scale was not expected from the raided group of people. The fighting lasted until 4 in the morning and picked up again the next night. That night, thousands of people had gathered and began protesting again. One transgender woman, Marsha P. Johnson, climbed a lamppost and dropped a bag of sand on the windshield of a car. As with the night before, fighting and protesting lasted until 4 a.m. This carried on for 4 more days and finally ended. In the aftermath of the riots, more gay liberation movements appeared.
After the Stonewall riots, the first gay pride happened on June 28, 1970, all across America in cities such as Chicago, New York, and San Francisco to commemorate the anniversary of the Stonewall riots. In the 1970s, the gay liberation movement had a rise in America. Lesbian women created record labels, collectives, newspapers, etc., and called for lesbian rights in the mainstream feminist groups such as National Organization for Women, NOW.
With the rise in the LGBT movement, it caused more of an acceptance of gay men and women in the religious community, and that was started by a minister that was ordained in the United Church of Christ in 1972. In the newfound LGBT movement, many family and friends of queer people were offered a greater role by parents and friends of lesbians and gays, otherwise known as PFLAG. Then, in 1973, the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality as an illness classification in its diagnostic manuals.
Oh look, it is time for the mystery document. The rules of the game here are simple. I read this document and I have to guess what this document is. If I get it wrong, I get hit by this dictionary presented by Evan. So let me present this document real quick. So, the contribution of societal attitudes to the problem of homosexuality has been amply considered. Among others, Churchill, Corey, Hoffman, Hooker, and Sods have noted some of the ways which negative, repressive, or fearful responding generates many difficulties for homosexuals. In spite of this, most empirical research about homosexuality has been limited to the studying of the homosexual and has not been focused on those of members of society whose attitude and behavior are contributing variables. This amounts to what R.L. Williams refers as victim analysis. Speaking in another context, testing of black subjects, Williams states that victim analysis is not sufficient or effective change. The system that produced the amount must be closely examined and modified. So, what is this document? I'm not really sure. I'm gonna have to really think about this. It's Don't hit me with the dictionary, I swear to God. Oh no, wait, it's the homophobia profile! It's the homophobia profile!
Moving into the 1980s, an AIDS epidemic came into rise in the United States. There were many cases of HIV and AIDS, but mostly common in the gay male community. So as the gay community rose to prominence, so did AIDS awareness. Another political movement that came onto the scene was a call to an end of military expulsion of gay and lesbian soldiers, with the high-profile case of Colonel Marguerite Kammermeyer publicized through a made-for-television movie, Serving in Silence. The service of gay men and women resulted in the uncomfortable compromise Don't Ask, Don't Tell, as an alternative to decades of military witch hunts and dishonorable discharges on December 21st, 1993, until September 20th, 2011.
In the 1990s, Ellen DeGeneres came out as a lesbian to the US, which started a rise of media visibility for gay men and women. Then in June 27, 2015, the US Supreme Court ruled that gay marriage is now legal all over the US in all 50 states, amazingly including Texas.
After the legalization of gay marriage, it should be over, right? Not necessarily. The focus of the country's LGBT movement has shifted over to transgender individuals. Various religious freedom and bathroom bills have popped up to make discrimination against transgender people legal on the basis of religious freedom or on the basis of trans women being perverted men in dresses coming into the women's room to sexually assault women and girls. The catch is there have been no documented cases of any transgender person sexually assaulting anyone, while there have been countless cases of transgender people being assaulted by someone else.
Okay.
Even with current advancements in the United States for LGBT rights, we are still left with a great deal of discrepancies in the labor force. 26 out of 30 states with anti-discriminatory laws ban discrimination on sexual orientation and gender identity. But 20 out of 50 states have no laws regarding either gender identity or sexual orientation at all.
Why does this all matter? These are people's lives at stake. We live in a country where active discrimination is still completely legal. A person can plead trans panic defense, a legal argument in which finding out someone is trans promoted an extreme act of violence or murder, as a valid defense against jail time in 49 states.
We've come a really long way from the days of imprisonment for being gay, but there are still ways to go in the term of true equality for LGBT people. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, welcome to US Crash Course Extreme. My name is
Do 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 do. Do.
Go ahead.
The rules here are...
Let's hear.
I'll cut that out.
Did I start right now?
I think she was going this whole time.
Oh! Okay. The contribution of societal attitudes? Can I start over?
Yeah.
27, 2015. The gay
The gay Supreme Court.